It's about 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, 9th of August. Hope you had a good Lions Gate yesterday. Peace is still abounding here in my beautiful new home, just near the river, in the heart of the Peak District, and just so beautiful to wake up here and just to feel the pristine chi. Set in this amazing space in the countryside overlooking the river and the forest. And I just wanted to jump on and talk a bit about the madness which is descending on the planet, in the world. Hello to everyone who's watching. Where I live here, COVID-19 just doesn't exist. I mean, we're on a walker's path here. There's not a single walker wearing masks. Everyone's happy, having fun. People are just walking past one another normally. None of this kind of fearful social distancing. And yet when I go into town, and I am compliant, and I wear a bandana which I pull up over my nose looking like I'm about to rob the shop, and immediately just let it drop as soon as I leave, and I just go with the flow. And it's very interesting to go into the towns, into the cities, and to really feel the fear which is abounding at the moment. And so I just wanted to jump on and talk a little bit about what's unfolding in terms of kind of esoteric wisdom, because I think it's really clear to everyone, everyone who's pretty consciously awake, that there's something more to this than meets the eye. Understatement of the year. There's obviously something much bigger going on, isn't there? It's obvious. It's really obvious. And interesting to read some of the reports coming out of Australia, that they've not only have they gone back down into lockdown, but they are using AI and helicopters, AI policing, drones, and also huge fines if you break the curfew. And the police are going door to door to check that people are indoors. So something very sinister going on. And it's and I've spoken a lot about the whole AI piece, because a couple of years back, quite randomly, I was kind of drawn into the world of AI through a mentoring client. So I spent a couple of years really exposing myself to the world of AI, and I'm not a huge sort of technology person, but it was very interesting to really start to understand what is unfolding in the world of AI. And even at that time, which was a couple of years ago, a lot of this stuff is there. It just hasn't broken yet. You know, the technology that's been formulating in laboratories, so to speak, hasn't yet broken massively on the world. But when it does, it's going to be utterly shocking. And I think that what is unfolding now, it's very easy to put the pieces together, isn't it, folks? That so we've got this sudden insanity, fear-based COVID. We've then got looming vaccinations, and then there's the whole 5G piece. Now, of course, 5G is what is needed to run AI, and particularly Internet of Things like driverless cars and drones. You need to have very strong, fast 5G level coverage across the planet to really drive this Internet of Things, which AI will depend upon. So when you piece all those pieces together, then you start to realise that what's going on is quite sinister. Now, the thing I really wanted to talk about is technology and the mind, and also as a business mentor, and also having kind of trained in trauma healing, I kind of understand a lot more now and a lot more in depth about what drives your highly driven alpha male entrepreneurs. Not to say there aren't women who are also in that alpha male highly driven energy. And one of the really interesting things, if you do any sort of research into the childhood of very highly driven men, you usually find that they had a very command controlling, highly critical mother and father. Quite often they were sent away to boarding school at a very young age. So had a highly traumatic childhood. And what a highly traumatic childhood does ultimately, when you can't fight and you can't flight, what happens is you freeze. And so essentially you close down. And what happens is like the heart closes down. And so you lose your ability to fully feel. And when people are highly traumatized children and they lose their ability to have empathy and to fully feel and to have compassion and to feel love, and they're dead inside, that is what makes people capable of doing atrocities in the world. Alice Miller wrote an amazing book about Germanic command control parenting styles called For Your Own Good, The Roots of Violence in Child Rearing, which exactly describes how, through command control parenting, Hitler had a wonderful base of which to use. All of the people of Germany who were very compliant because of this parenting style, and he was able to harness the entire country to carry out the atrocities of the 1930s, 1940s Nazi Germany. Very fascinating book, quite horrific book as well. So that you were able to dictate to people very easily. You know, you used to be a bank manager or an accountant, but now I'm going to enlist you to be in the Gestapo and to use your forensic analytical skills to discover who is breaking the rules, and I will give you the power to punish those people. So that was how it was done. So it's very interesting. So I'm kind of going off piste here, but I just wanted to set the scene, because if it is true that behind all of the governments there is this capitalist kind of New World Order, dark cabal, whatever you want to call it, but let's just call it a small group of highly driven entrepreneurs who have the power, who have the true power, because the true power isn't really with governments, it's actually with things like media channels, Facebook, YouTube. Just look at how much censorship is going on. So anyone who speaks out about 5G, about vaccinations, wow, it's getting closed down. So one has to start questioning where the true power lies. And it isn't difficult to imagine that you have a kind of strategic board, shall we call it, of heads of lots of these powerful organizations coming together, and it may be they feel that this is benevolent in the interests of humanity, about how they can police, harness, control the world. And it may even be a benevolent thing of like, because they know what's coming. So just to say about knowing what's coming, I watched a very interesting video. Now, of course, there's millions of videos of conspiracy theories and all sorts of content, and who knows what's true or not, or fake or not. But I watched an interesting video about the domino possibility of what is about to unfold. Because, of course, the last banking crash in 2008, everything was kind of glued together after that to hold all the economies of the world together after the banking collapse. And everyone sort of questioned at the time, how the hell did they manage to do that? And surely something's got to give. Well, of course, now we are in the throes of this COVID-19. The implications are starting to be felt of the whole COVID-19 lockdowns and the impacts on economies. And so this video was predicting that, of course, what's going to happen is mass bankruptcies and people losing their jobs, businesses going out of business. We've already heard about, British Airways making thousands of people redundant. So whole industries collapsing, whole sectors collapsing, companies going into bankruptcy. And of course, the next knock-on effect from that is another banking collapse. And of course, if you have a mass population where people have no money and people become desperate, then you have the risk of mass uprising. So it isn't difficult to see the potential of what is coming. And we've already seen huge uprisings happening all over the world, in this country, in Hong Kong, in America, where people are just, they've got nothing to lose, but they're just going out. So we are headed into some challenging waters. Now, the challenge about the world being run by heartless technology entrepreneurs, I want to explain this through some ancient esoteric wisdom, and that is through the tarot. Now, the interesting thing about the tarot is that it's a deck of picture cards, and it was created centuries ago. And the interesting thing about the tarot is that it uses symbolism in the same way that there is massive symbolism in the power over control structure, because the secret mystery schools and the ancient knowledge knew that symbolism speaks direct to the subconscious. And so there is a huge amount of symbolism included in things like masonry and in the tarot, in art, in stained glass. So, and when you have a dream, you dream in symbolism. The symbolism is the language of the subconscious, and you can use symbolism to direct energy and essentially to command control. And by extension of that, the spelling of language, especially the English language, our spelling is also very powerful. So language, and the English language in particular, has some very powerful spellings embedded in it. So you have to, I always say to people, watch your spelling, because the English language is loaded with power. So these symbolism, the language of symbolism and the language of spelling, really important to pay attention to it. So in the tarot, you have the major arcana, which are the 22 main picture cards: the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, and so on. And then you have the minor arcana, which are the four suits, which are very much like the playing cards of our current era. And they are Cups, which is all about the heart. They are Pentacles, which is all about material realm wealth, but in the true sense of wealth in terms of abundance and prosperity. Then you have the Rods, which are like the magic wands, which are the spiritual suit. And then you have the Swords, which is basically all about the mind. So the Swords is a very interesting suit. I want to talk about the suit of swords and the symbolism of swords and the implications of what happens when we are completely in the mind rather than being in the heart. Now, of course, our education system encourages us to be completely in the mind, logically working everything out, scientifically testing, is this true or not? And I'll believe it when I see it, as opposed to I'll see it when I believe it, which is a much more esoteric way of looking at the world. So we have all been trained to be very much in the mind, in the logical mind. And of course, computers are very much about logic. Yes, no, on, off. And so the more we get into things being run by computers, yes, no, does this comply with the program or not? And there's no heart, there's no empathy, there's no space for compassion or understanding or human intervention, because if the AI drone is programmed yes, no, that's quite dangerous, because you've taken the human element out of it and you've replaced it with this on-off yes, no. And it is a form of judgment. And this is one of the very fascinating things. This is the year of 2020. This is the year of double judgment. And so this transcending judgment, judging and sorting everything into right, wrong, yes, no, good, bad, we have to be very careful of that, because when we are in this black and white world, we lose compassion. And of course, if you look at the justice system, it is all about black and white. Yes, no. Did they break the law or did they keep the law? And there is no compassion. There's very little compassion if you deal with the police and the justice system. And it's all very black and white. If you go to, the police arrive, they're black and white. You go to court, the barristers wear black and white. And even I have a Masonic bathroom which has a black and white checkered floor, which is the flooring of the Masons. So this on, off, yes, no, black and white. The justice system is very much based on this mind-based, sword-based mental energy. And of course justice holds the sword, which is the same sword as the Ace of Swords. So as you can see, justice, she holds the scales, and she holds the sword of truth, the sword of yes, no, right, wrong, black and white. And here it is again, and this is the Ace of Swords. So the suit of swords is all about being in the mind, and it's anyone who does tarot knows that the swords cards are the tricky cards in the deck. So let's look at the Two of Swords. So here we have a woman who's blindfolded. She's got two swords. She's got a back to the moon, the back to the seas, back to flow. So she's in that logical yes, no, totally in the mind and can't see beyond it. And this will resonate for you if you've ever had a difficult decision to make. Do I do this or do I do that? And it's like, what don't I want to see? So this is the Two of Swords, a tricky card about being in the mind, that duality, yes, no. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? Which choice shall I make? Which decision shall I make? And it's like this idea that if I choose this and I get it wrong, there will be disaster. Whereas in truth, if we know that actually going with the flow means that we can't get it wrong. We can't get it wrong in truth, because the universe will sort it out when you have faith and trust. You can't get it wrong. Three of Swords, another tricky card about a heart pierced by three swords in the dark clouds and the rain, and that when the mind takes over from being in, when the mind is in control and the heart is not in control, that is where all sorrow is rooted. Then we have the Four of Swords, and this is the way to overcome the mind is through meditation. So here the Four Swords, we have the Chapel of Rest, which is the only way to still the mind is through meditation. And when we can drop from the mind into the heart, that is our only kind of escape from the mind. So that sword is alluding to the importance of stillness and calming the turbulent mind and dropping into the heart. We come to the Five of Swords, and the interesting thing about the Five of Swords is very much symbolizes the persecutor, victim, drama, persecutor, victim, rescuer, drama triangle. So we have the persecutor here, his victim is crying on the shore, and there's the rescuer going to go and save him. And so all of that Karpman drama triangle, the persecutor, victim, rescuer, Karpman drama triangle, is rooted in the mind and unresolved trauma, in truth. So we have the Six of Swords, which is safe passage from difficult circumstances. So the mother and her son are being shipped out of the drama and the mind trauma across the sea. So this is kind of escape from the mind. Then we have the Seven of Swords, which is a thief coming in the night to steal everything. We have the Eight of Swords, which is bound by the mind again, bound by invisible chains of this invisible prison of the mind. Then we have the Nine of Swords, and I'm sure we've all experienced this at some point, that dark night of the soul, where you just are in a place of despair and darkness, thinking, dreading the world, and it's all going wrong, totally in the labyrinth of darkness. And then the final Swords card in the 1 to 10 is total death of all the chakras, and that is death of the ego, essentially. And again, that's not a great card. Then we have the Page of Swords, learning how to fight. We have the Knight of Swords, charging into war, ready for battle. And then we have the very grim King and Queen of Swords. Now just imagine having those two as your mum and dad. Very stern King and Queen, ruling by the sword of command control. So all in all, the Swords is not a happy deck. And it basically it alludes to, in terms of esoteric wisdom, that when we are in the mind, when we are in the yes-no judgmental mind, trapped in our thoughts, that is the source of all grief, all anger, all fear, all worry, all trauma, all drama, and essentially it shows that we are trapped in the labyrinth. So this kind of brings me to the antidote. And one of the, going back to this whole kind of new world order unfolding of what's going on in the world, it seems to me that what has happened is that the plan has been accelerated. This global master plan, they've decided we need to move fast because time is running out and the consciousness is rising. And being in this world of kind of spiritual, esoteric world and shamanism and ceremony, what is going on all over the planet quietly, quite often below the radar, is small groups, mandalas of highly spiritual people are coming together, and they are just singing and creating harmonic resonance and doing medicine ceremonies and going deep to heal trauma and to resolve and to uninstall all of the trauma and to heal the grid, And they are creating tremendous harmonic resonance. And what has been happening is that as this harmonic resonance is being created in these small pockets, imagine a bit like pebbles being thrown into calm lakes and those ripples are flowing out. What's happening is the consciousness of humanity is rising. And so it's far more difficult for anger and fear to, when you're in a place of faith and harmonic resonance and you're in a place of peace, far more difficult for fear and anger to grip. And so it's almost like fear and anger have had to be amped up in the collective to create this dissonance. So essentially, if you want to make it really simple, is to understand that, it's very interesting. I had a medicine ceremony, probably about a year or so ago, where the medicine ceremony the message just kept showing me over and over again. It was like a teaching. Okay, are you ready for this teaching? Okay, God is love, and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. God is love, and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. God is love, and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. God is love, and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. God is love, and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. Are you ready for this? Let me give it to you one more time. God is love, and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. So when we are in perfect harmonic resonance, and the perfect harmonic resonance is the resonance of Gaia, which is why when they put you in a police cell, it's 4 square walls. You're put in a cube. There is no window. There's no real window or light to the outside world. There's no sunlight. There's no Gaia. There's no greenery. There's no life. And that is the invisible prison. And so it's very interesting that cities are created to be very square, to be very much in the logical square grid, because God is love, and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. When you are living in Gaia, you really understand that pristine chi, it's about flow. And flow, if you look at the river, for example, if you look at a river on a map, you'll notice that the river flows in an S shape. This is Kundalini flow. So God is love, and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. And we see this in nature, which is why the best antidote for you, if you're in a place of fear and worry and anger, is to go into nature and lie on the earth and calibrate yourself to the perfect resonance of Gaia, because God is love and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. And you can get into that resonance by stepping back into nature, which is why where I live here in the heart of Gaia, where the chi is perfect and pristine and the harmonic resonance is as close to perfection as you can possibly get, because God is love and love is a perfect harmonic resonance. That is how you get back into alignment. And when you are in that alignment of perfect harmonic resonance and you are in the heart, you are invincible.